Welcome back to Wake Up Cricket powered by Pavilion Picks. It's 8 a.m. on a Wednesday, and Australia are finally not finally, Australia are officially out of the World Cup. Does this mean Pakistan are going to win yet another World Cup? Now, before we get into all of this, before we talk about the headlines, before we talk about what's happened in cricket yesterday, hit that subscribe button and get us to 100 subs.
Like we are unaware why use the word finally. This is something you'd been waiting for, even from before the tournament started. Moving on with the stories for the day. Appeal for Imran. Sunil Gavaskar Kapil among 14 legends, write to Pakistan government, urge immediate medical care for Imran Khan. Imran Khan, the former Pakistan Prime Minister who also led the men's team to the 1992 World Cup title, received support from the cricket fraternity on Tuesday as 14 former international captains signed a petition urging the Pakistan government and Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif to ensure proper medical facilities for the 73-year-old who's currently in jail. The letter comes amid reports of his deteriorating health.
Now, Imran Khan's been a very polarizing figure in Pakistan, in the country in general, but even in Pakistan's history. In fact, conversations with a lot of the citizens even lead to you realizing how important and instrumental he's been. Some people even go as far as saying that he's the most popular person from Pakistan after Muhammad Ali Jinnah, which should really put things into context about why everything that's happening right now geopolitically and especially with Imran Khan is so important. Now, it was in 2025 when he was put into this prison cell, which supposedly is for the worst of the worst criminals in Pakistan. And he's been cut off in terms of contact with his family. There was a little bit of contact, but even that's gone away. There's a brilliant piece that Osman Saimuddin has written on all of this, which you can check out. He is also someone who writes for ESPN. But in general, it is a very sad state of affairs, and because of the inhuman conditions, it has prompted all of these captains to sort of pin down this letter almost for humanity's sake and just pass it on to the Pakistan government.
I also think this is a first where something like this is even happening. It's very new. I was very surprised when I read it yesterday. For the most part, I didn't even think it was real until Hindustan Times reported it. And yeah, I don't know if it's going to do anything in the large scheme of things, but to just see this happen, it's just good. It's good. Like Praatibh said, it's good for humanity's sake. Imran Khan is a very, very big figure in Pakistan. Was the captain of the Pakistan team. Was the captain when Pakistan lifted the World Cup. But more than all of that, he was also part of the politics and everything. So he's been one of the biggest figures in Pakistan. The country's history. If you were to compare, like to give you a little perspective, he would be like a Sachin for Pakistan, right? He's a very large figure in Pakistan. But yeah, it's very interesting because something like this has never happened before, at least in my knowledge.
Yeah, at least in our lifetimes, this feels like a first where, I mean, cricket is always something that has transcended boundaries, but off late, because of everything that's been happening geopolitically, it's just in a way wholesome or nice to see that this is panning out the way it is.
And it's been 2.5 years since he's been jailed, and the public outcry does draw attention and has contributed to some facilities being provided. So this international involvement, we hope, does help his case. Now, moving on to the next story, which is on Big Bash and whether there'd be a Big Bash game in India. Cricket Australia to consider Big Bash opener in India. Cricket Australia is considering staging the first Big Bash game of next season, not in Sydney, Melbourne, or even Auckland, but in India. The bold ambition is part of a wider strategy to intertwine the lucrative Indian market with the BBL ahead of a near certain sale for at least two of its 8 franchises. SEN Cricket reports two senior Cricket Australia staffers traveled to India recently to investigate the possibility of a regular season Big Bash League game being played, ideally in Chennai. Head of Business Operations Phil Rigby and Head of Competition Development and Strategy Mark Machado flew to India as discussions ramp up around the logistics of an offshore game. While no Big Bash League clubs have been formally briefed, The Perth Scorchers appear a logical choice to play in India given their time zone and an openness from WACA officials to consider offers from wealthy Indian business figures. Other clubs are aware of Cricket Australia's desire to stage the season opener in India. However, a deal is far from complete given approvals would be needed to be granted from various stakeholders including broadcasters and the BCCI.
This is such an odd thing. I feel like a couple of years down the line, when you go around looking at franchise tournaments all around the world, you will have every team based on the IPL teams and IPL owners for starters. But for Big Bash to start or to have a couple of matches in India, it's so odd. First of all, it shows how powerful and how much money India has in cricket for starters. If this is a conversation in itself, but I don't think any Australian former players are going to be happy about this at all. A franchise tournament owned and like just built. It's it's a country's baby, a franchise tournament, and to have that have the season opener or to have a couple of matches in another country, especially India, for them because of the rivalry and all that. Yeah. It's just very odd. Like I wouldn't want it to happen, because it just makes no sense for Big Bash might make a lot of money, and yeah, sure, like it's a very interesting concept, but it just makes no sense for a franchise tournament of a country to have some of the matches in
another country.
Yeah, way other. Yeah. It's not even like New Zealand. Yeah. It's India. Like they have to travel from Australia to India to play a couple of matches to then fly back to Australia, having a franchise tournament being played.
Yeah, the logistics of it are also so weird, because if you're only going to have, say, the first half of the tournament or like the first couple of games of the tournament, like logistically and even financially, I don't know if it's going to pan out for them.
And like why?
Yeah, and the interesting thing is also the fact that BBL is one of the more established leagues. Yeah. Like if it was a new league, like something happening in Nepal, and you want to sort of build an audience, and that's why you're exposing it to an Indian crowd as well, okay, maybe you see the point in that. But Big Bash is one of the most established leagues and the oldest ones in cricket, in T20 cricket, so it makes like zero sense.
Well, you know our word.
Well, since the time the 100 equity sale happened, there has been a paradigm shift in the approach with regards to Big Bash League. And we've seen that in football, more so in terms of exhibition matches, though, not necessarily the first match of the season. Now, moving on to the next story, which is on Pratika Rawal's return. Pratika Rawal added to India's ODI squad in Australia. Pratika Rawal has been added as India's 16th member for the upcoming 3 ODI series in Australia, which will be played between the ongoing T20I series and the one-off test in the multi-format point-based tour. India currently have a 1-0 lead in the T20Is. Rawal, who has been out of action since October 26 when she hurt her knee and ankle while fielding in an ODI World Cup match against Bangladesh in Navi Mumbai, had earlier been included in the test squad but could make her international comeback sooner.
All right, so for people who have forgotten who Pratika Rawal is, she was India's opener in the World Cup, and she was playing up until she got that injury, which meant that Shefali Verma had to fly in and become her replacement and open the innings. That's also when we
saw the semi-final.
From the semi-final. That's also when we saw the brilliant knock that she eventually played in the final. And post that, also you would not have seen Pratika Rawal even in the WPL, because she was still recovering from injury. Yeah. She was part of the franchise itself, but still. To put into context, Pratika Rawal has been a brilliant opening partner with Smriti Mandhana. That partnership is already one of India's most successful, if not the most successful opening partnership. They average about 75 as an opening partnership, which should put things into context. And Pratika on her own also is someone who averages nearly 50 in the ODI format, with a strike rate that interestingly does rival and is almost close to the strike rate of Shefali Verma. Although Shefali Verma does seem to be someone who's more explosive. And this is where the toss-up comes in, right? Because of the fact that Pratika has had such a good run, when she returns to the squad, does she immediately get the nod ahead of someone like Shefali, who now has clearly shown that she's become a lot more mature? And so India will have to figure out what that toss-up looks like. Also because Smriti Mandhana is now in the kind of form and in the kind of frame of mind where she's more than happy to take the attack on in the power play overs.
True. Yeah. I also feel like it will be interesting because if it wasn't for Jemmy at number 3 in the semi-final and final, a lot of people also would have talked about should Pratika Rawal bat at number 3, which would have been interesting in itself. But now that Jemmy did bat at number 3 and did score a lot of runs, I will be shocked if she's out of the number 3 position, especially because she anyways does that in the T20 format. She's doing that brilliantly in the ODI format. I mean, she did that in the 2 matches. But yeah, I would like, it'll break my heart to see Pratika Rawal not get a place in the side, because leading up to the semi-final, sure, she wasn't striking big in the World Cup, and that was a criticism we had ourselves. But leading up to the World Cup, she did everything right with Smriti. She scored a lot of runs. The opening partnership was great. It was up to it was better than most in the world, even compared to the Australians, for the very first time in history of world Indian cricket. So for her to be doing all of that with Smriti and then to get injured, yeah, it'll break my heart to
I
see.
mean, if anything, Pratika Rawal, if she's ready to bat in the middle order, then Harleen Deol has to watch out for her
Yeah.
position because they're similar molds of players.
Yeah, and there were questions raised on Harleen Dale's strike rate, and more amplified in her case than, say, in Jemmy's case. All right, then.
Yeah.
So moving on to the next story, which is on Nepal and them ending 12-year wait as I racing Scotland. Nepal ended a 12-year wait for a third T20 World Cup win, concluding the 2026 campaign with a received victory over Scotland in Mumbai. Sompal Kami, the only man still around from their maiden appearance at the 2014 World T20, provided the inspiration with the ball before Dipendra Singh Airi skewered a brilliant Scotland performance with an unbeaten 50 of 23 to seal a high octane chase. Not for nothing are Nepal known as the cardiac kids, and this game, on which nothing was riding other than national pride and bragging rights, swung heart stoppingly from side to side throughout the game.
The Scotland Nepal game is very interesting to me because Nepal has had a very disappointing World Cup, if you think about it. I mean, they lost against Italy and they finished below Italy, whereas where Italy is making the World Cup debut, and Scotland has won against Italy and they finish above Italy. But then you see Nepal lose against Scotland. But then Scotland, you can always cut them some slack because they weren't supposed to play in the World Cup to begin with, and they were almost a last minute entry. And so, as a Nepal team, if I were to take a step back, I would be disappointed. But then if I was the Scotland team and then realize that I've lost against Nepal, who's the last in the group stage, I would be all the more disappointed.
Yeah.
Nepal yesterday just outplayed Scotland completely, right? So you have to keep that in mind. And then you think about how Nepal has lost the other games. They've lost outright against every single team, but they also lost against Italy.
To put it into context, in the game yesterday specifically, right? Scotland eventually got to 170 for 7, but at some point they were 133 for 2 in the 16th over. And at that position, you would have thought that they're going to be inching closer to 200 rather than 170. And so for Nepal to be able to pull it back there made a lot of sense and eventually gave them the momentum to carry on into their own batting innings. Even if you look at Nepal's batting scorecard, every batter, barring their captain Rohit Podel, has gotten runs, gotten some sort of start, scored at a strike rate of over 120. But eventually it came down to their best bat of the tournament, which is Dipendra Singh Airi, who even against England, he looked like he was going to take the game away, played a valiant knock in vain, however. But this time around, he was able to get them across the line. And fittingly, this is also why Nepal cricketers are known as the cardiac kids, because every game, and especially this game, has just been an up and down swing for them. And ultimately, he had to score 50 of 23 deliveries. So by no means was it a walk in the park. He had to come out and play an outrageous knock to be able to get them over the line. But I agree with you when you say that Nepal should be a little disappointed, especially given how strong a position they were in at the start of the tournament. And I just wonder how different the tournament would have been had they beaten England there, just in terms of like the psychology and the confidence of carrying a victory against such a big team in that.
You would have probably beaten Italy.
Yeah.
Jammu and Kashmir on top. Why are we being provided geography lessons over here? Of course, we studied geography in school. Okay, no, we're talking about cricket. That's our next story. Jammu and Kashmir on top. Nabi puts Jammu and Kashmir in sight of maiden final despite a Shami 8-4. A total of 17 wickets fell on day 3 of Ranji Trophy semi-final between Bengal and Jammu and Kashmir in Kalyani. All of them went to the quicks with Mohammad Shami and Akib Nabi starring for their sides. By stumps though, Jammu and Kashmir were only 83 runs away from making their first ever Ranji final. Nabi bagged 4 for 36 in the second innings to skittle Bengal out for 99, thus adding to his haul of 5 for 87 in the first. That left Jammu and Kashmir only 126 runs to chase after Bengal went 26 ahead in the first innings, courtesy of a career best first last haul of 8 for 90 from Shami. Jammu and Kashmir were 198 for 5 in their first innings overnight, and Shami got all the remaining wickets for Bengal. But before his 8 for, Nabi and Yudhvir Singh frustrated Bengal with the bat. After Jammu and Kashmir were reduced to 231 for 8, they smashed 64 runs in quick time to chip away at Bengal's first innings total of 328.
Now, there's a couple of things here. When I read the 8 for 90 at first, I thought, okay, it was a match haul. And then I went and saw that Shami's picked up 8 wickets in a single innings, which is a crazy performance for Shami. And the Shami fans out there are going to be happy and asking for a spot for him in the Indian team. But that's a discussion for a whole other time. And once again, we come to Akib Nabi, who till now has been doing stuff with the ball. Even here, once again, he's got wickets with the ball. In fact, his first innings in the last 4 innings where he's not got a 5-wicket haul and he's still got 4 wickets. But for him to be able to score those runs with the bat, I think was more important for Jammu and Kashmir. Although they haven't got the first innings lead, now it doesn't matter because they got Bengal all out for 99.
Yeah.
And they're very much in sight for a victory because Bengal 328 and 99. Jammu and Kashmir 302, there was a 26-run deficit as we already covered. And now they're 43 for 2. So they're in a really good position. Today that is going to be a tricky day, possibly in the morning session where they might have to watch out because that's when the ball will very likely do a bit. But apart from that, I think they're just 83 runs away from what will be their first ever final in the Ranji Trophy.
That is true. If you go to the, I don't know, I think it's the BCCI domestic page. I don't even think it's official. But if you go, you will realize that it has been a tricky pitch to bat on. The batters haven't found it really comfortable to get on with it. Except I don't think it's that difficult because even if you look at Shami's 8 for, a lot of it is the batters just throwing the bats at it or not reading the line and length. It's exactly what happened in Bengal's innings. The batters just didn't apply themselves, which is a shocker because most of them have been playing for Bengal for a very long time. Most of them threw their wickets away. I felt like they were very, very overconfident and almost arrogant in a sense towards the Jammu and Kashmir bowlers, which is also why you see the result, which is also why when the J&K batters come out to play, they have to apply themselves. They will be under pressure because the pressure of going into the first ever finals, but hopefully they can get it done.
You got it done in exact 3 minutes. All right. Finally, the final story that we have for the day, Australia and Pakistan story. Now, Australia's T20 World Cup comes to an end at Pallekele after the washout. Day-long drizzle in Pallekele knocked Australia out of the T20 World Cup and sent Zimbabwe into the Super 8, thanks to Ireland and Zimbabwe sharing points from their washed-out encounter in which not even the toss was possible. Zimbabwe now have 5 points on table, which puts them out of Australia's reach. With Sri Lanka having qualified for the Super 8 via their victory over Australia, Group B's qualifiers are now decided. Zimbabwe will take Australia's seeded place, that is X2, in the Super 8, which means they will play West Indies in Mumbai on February 23rd, India and Chennai on February 26th, and South Africa in Delhi on 1st March.
Now, a lot of Indian fans would be very, very happy that Australia is out of a World Cup. India doesn't have to face Australia in the semi-final or potentially in the final. But then when you look at the history of when Australia have been knocked out and Pakistan have gone on to win World Cups and Champions Trophies and T20 World Cups and all of that, I don't know how excited or happy you would be. If history were to repeat itself by the end of this World Cup, Pakistan would lift the cup, is all I'll say. But then you think about how India have to face these matches and how India have, 8-1 right now against Pakistan?
Yeah.
You know, think about this. India have 8-1, right? Pakistan Super 8s, they somehow get through whatever they get through. They don't face India in the semi-finals, but they face India in the finals. All the hype of 8-1 and then Pakistan win the World Cup against India in the finals. We won't hear the end of it.
Yeah. I think that'll be a nightmare for the Indians.
Yeah.
The Indian team, that is. Also for the Indian fans, of course. And it's not the first time it would be happening, right?
Yeah.
2017 Champions Trophy.
Yeah,
that's how it was.
That's a documentary I would watch. Not the one that you hit 6 against Bumrah to. But this, I would potentially watch. Because everyone's making fun of the Pakistan team. Half of the pundits are disappointed with their team like they always are. Yeah. If they go on to win the World Cup, that'll be a story in itself for them.
That's true. And we'll possibly know this today itself because Pakistan do have a fixture, which is where we'll also get to the final bit of the day, which is where we talk about the day's games and what you can expect. Firstly, you have South Africa taking on UAE, which will happen in just about 2 to 3 hours' time. South Africa start off as firm favorites there. I'll be surprised if UAE make it through.
Yeah.
Namibia and Pakistan will be an interesting fixture because so much is on the line right now. Namibia is ahead, and Pakistan, if they win this leapfrog, Namibia go to 6 points and they're potentially through then. And so Namibia is also a good side. They did run India close in some aspects, and that's something to watch out for. I think important game for both teams on the line. And lastly is India's fixture, which is India taking on Netherlands. It is going to be, once again, it should be an India victory. I don't see anything out of the ordinary happening. But India has still not played their best brand of cricket. So can they bring that A game before heading into the Super 8s is something that would be nice to see.
Megha will do a bit of a different prediction this time around. Do you think we might finally watch Suryakumar Yadav take the ball against Netherlands, knowing his captaincy and knowing how he gives the ball to every other player sometimes in the playing 11? Do you think we'll see Suryakumar Yadav bowl, Tilak Verma, Rinku Singh potentially bowl? How many batters might just get a ball today?
There are only 20 overs possible at max, and we're not really sure whether we'd get all 20 of those depending on how the match pans out. Probably not Surya Kumar Yadav. There are others who have gotten to hone their skills. Now, there's one thing that I want to respond on the Pakistan story. Every time they cross the first hurdle at any such ICC event, the stars start aligning till they finally don't align. Be it 2019, 2023, there's some or the other coincidence that we're able to find out till does not materialize.
And hopefully for the Indian fans, that is the fate of Pakistan. Now, this has been our live for today, and whatever has happened in cricket yesterday. So thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you guys so much for joining on Wake Up Cricket, powered by Pavilion Picks. If you haven't subscribed to us, please do that. See you guys tomorrow at 8 a.m. Thank you guys so much for watching. Peace.